I should like announce everything I do that way. We're starting lesson 1.4.
That's not how I do it.
I can't do low voice things. We had a kid, and I'm forgetting his name. He used to always do the announcements. This is like 6 years ago. Oh, what's his name? I know it's before your time, but his announcements were really funny because he used a really, really, really dry voice. So he'd be like, "Chess Club. Today the chess club will meet in room 74. Drama club. Today," so like everything was just at that monotone. And then he'd tell a joke every announcement, but the joke was in that exact same tone. And I always just told him, like, I want you to do my funeral. And be like, Orlando died of a heart attack. Flowers. In lieu of flowers, make a donation. Sandwiches will be in the basement after the ceremony. You know, like, I don't know. Anyway, enough about me. Okay, we're going to get going. So we said way back in lesson 1.2 that we have 8 levels of classification that we use to classify living things on Earth. Who can tell me those 8 levels of classification? Ross, go.
Domain, kingdom, something, class, order, family, genus.
Good. What's the something? What's that PH word? Phylum is correct. So domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Good. Each of those goes from being broad to being more specific. The analogy I used is like an address, right? You could say we live in North America, then Canada, then we're in Ontario, then we're in Southern Ontario, we're in Welland, we're in East Welland, we are on Wellington Street, and then you could say the address, right? Does that make sense? Each one gets more specific. Today we're going to talk about the first 2 of those big groups, and they're big and broad. We're going to talk about domain and kingdoms, starting at the top. So, these are the broadest groups that scientists put living things into, and the broadest of them is the domain. All right? So, we'll get going on that first, and I want you to remind yourself, there are 2 very basic cell types. And I'll remind you of the names of them. You should have learned this in grade 10. I guarantee you learned this in grade 10. But I will remind you anyway. On the example on the left here, we have an example of a prokaryote or a prokaryotic cell. And over here, we have an example of a eukaryotic cell. Okay, so that's the naming. Hopefully it rings a bell from grade 10 in those terms? No? All right, well, you will, I promise. Been a long time. Sorry? Yeah, So we have prokaryotes, eukaryotes. Now, these are not the domains, but they're related to the domains. All right, we're going to take a look at this, and it's going to give us a sense of how we first divide cells into categories. What do we notice about these? What is the difference between these 2 types of cells?
One has a tail and one doesn't.
Sorry?
One has a tail and one doesn't.
One has a tail and one doesn't.
One's emptier.
Sure, yeah, sure. One is emptier, definitely.
One of them has a cell wall.
Yeah, one of them does have a cell wall. That's true. Now, mind you, some eukaryotic cells have cell walls too. But in this particular example, yeah. What else?
One looks like it has eggs on it, and the other one doesn't. One has DNA.
Yeah, in fact, they both have DNA, though this one, the DNA takes up like a big chunk of the cell, and in here, the DNA is these chromosomes. Chromosomes is DNA too. Though, good thinking, yeah? Yeah, very good. If you look here, we have ribosomes. We have whatever these things are. Do you know what these things are? They're used for cellular transportation, messaging. G word. The Golgi bodies, the Golgi apparatus. We have here this is protein synthesis, transformation.
Yeah.
The endoplasmic reticulum. Do these words ring a bell? Don't worry if they don't. We'll talk about them. If they don't ring a bell, that's because you probably just were told about them but never did anything with them. This course, we're going to do some stuff with them, so that'll make more sense to you. Yep.
One has a nucleus
Very good. Okay. This is the major category. The major difference between these cells is that prokaryotes and eukaryotes is that the eukaryotes have a nucleus. Prokaryotes have no nucleus. Eukaryotes have organelles. Prokaryotes have no organelles. Eukaryotic cells are complex, and at least in relative terms, prokaryotic cells are simple. All right, they're nice and simple. Prokaryotic cells, not individual ones of them, but they are the type of cell that existed in the early days of life. Does that make sense? They are survivors of a lineage of cells that didn't get much more complicated. All right? So the earliest life was fairly simple, and prokaryotic cells are the most simple life on Earth. They're the most like those sort of ancient simple cells. Does that make sense? So, ancient life was all prokaryotic. Before the development of the nucleus. Yes.
Does prokaryote?
Prokaryote. Oh,
I was going to say
missing an R. Thank you. Sorry about that. Please keep me on my toes with that. I'm not the world's great speller, which is to say I'm a fantastically bad speller, so I will definitely make errors from time to time. So keep me on my toes. I'd appreciate that. Any questions about that? This, as it turns out, provides us with our first, our first division, which is domains. All right? So the domains that we have are, I just want to make sure that one moment. Sorry? Yeah, I just want to make sure I don't misspell it because I've been doing that. AEA. 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 Okay, I got it. I have a habit of misspelling this, and usually I have my printed out cheat sheet right here, and I didn't today. Whoops. So, we have three kingdoms. Archaea, AEA. Archaea, bacteria, and eukaryota. And I'm going to make sure I spelled that right too. So you can judge me if you like, but I don't like to make bacteria, eukaryota, Y-O-T-A. 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 Got it. Okay. So, can you guess, of these three domains, which ones are prokaryotes? Very good. These are prokaryotes. And the eukaryotes obviously are the eukaryota. Very good. So this is a really broad definition. Is anyone familiar with the word archaic? What's it mean if something is archaic? Or if something has been archived? Yeah. Yeah, it's old. So the archaea are those organisms that are most like sort of the ancient early life on Earth, the least changed things that still exist today. Bacteria are also very simple cells, but they are more modern sort of in design than the earliest life on Earth. And then everything else has a nucleus. So bacteria, archaea, and then everything else has a nucleus, and everything else falls in here, which is most of the stuff around us. Animals, plants, fungi, all of those things fall under eukaryota. No, because I'm going to erase that, but that'd be challenging for you. See, for me, it's just like a flick of the pen and it's gone, but for you, it'd be like a lot of erasing. So, but I mean, well, then you really have a problem on your hands. So that's our first level, archaea, bacteria, eukarya. But that way, just really quickly, when you look at something's taxonomy, you instantly know something about its cells. And I want to go add something to this. Prokaryotes, because they are simple, they are always unicellular.